During the year-end meetings at Innisfil Town Hall, discussion focused on policing and budget-related matters. The South Simcoe Police Services provided updates for the towns of Innisfil and Bradford West Gwillimbury. Compared to 2023, there was a significant increase in stolen vehicle reports, a trend the provincial auto theft team is actively addressing. Additionally, the police said there was a notable rise in domestic violence calls attributed to potential societal stressors, financial difficulties, mental health challenges, and a greater willingness to report intimate partner violence. The board also noted that December is typically a stressful month for families, which may contribute to an increase in domestic calls. On the other hand, there was a slight decrease in missing person reports. Speaking to Simcoe Community Media, Innisfil Mayor Lynn Dollin emphasized the value of town's two-year budgeting system in managing large-scale projects effectively while addressing community needs amid rising costs from inflation, collective bargaining, and increased construction expenses. She highlighted accomplishments such as foundational planning for growth, stormwater management, and transit improvements, while reaffirming community engagement as a top priority for 2025.
So community engagement has always been a top priority. We are fortunate enough to start a number of new initiatives in 2024 that we want to keep going. Our teen nights, which we've been working on. We've got lots of neighborhood nights where we connect with our community and make sure they understand the services that we provide and what we can do better. Because we're not just about telling the residents, talking to them. We want them to talk to us, and we want them to tell us what it is that we need to do and what we need to do better. It's all about continuous improvement. It's not about saying we're the best and we've got it all right. We know we can continuously improve, and we're happy to hear from residents who are passionate about their community, who think we can do things better, and we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. So thank you to all the residents of Innisfil. We have an amazing community who volunteer countless hours. I'm always amazed when I see every week all of the things that the food bank is doing, that the Rotary is doing, the Lions are doing, all of the groups. We have a community for kids who are making sure kids don't go without. Everybody in our community who is looking out for each other and just making this a wonderful place to live. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And from all of council, we wish you the happiest of holidays and hope whatever it is that you enjoy the most, that you get lots of it during the holidays.
Following is our coverage of the meetings.
Ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest on the regular meeting items in the agenda. Being none, we'll move forward.
Just on the Bradford report, I think we need to do that recommendation there.
Oh,
sorry, I thought you meant you just have to approve the confidential reports.
okay, a motion to approve the confidential report. Mayor Dolan, seconded by Member Singh. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And a motion that the regular meeting agenda date is December 14th. I think that is 2024. Be adopted as printed. It says 2020, just for your benefit.
Oh. Okay.
Motion by Mayor Leduc, second by Member Singh. All in favor? Thank you. And that the minutes of the Bradford West Gwillimbury Innisfil Police Service Board meeting November 23rd, again 2024. Maria, somehow got into 2020.
Mine says 2024. Mine says 24.
Yeah, they're all. Mine says 2020. Be adopted as printed.
Yeah. November 27th, 2024.
Maria. Just so you can see it. You don't think
Do you have the right agenda?
that I don't. Oh, I do. No, I don't.
You've got the 2020 agenda.
I got the 2020 agenda.
Can we go back to what policing cost in 2020?
No, got the 2024 here.
Okay,
All right, thank you. Thank goodness you came over. We stuck 4 years ago. We've done the minutes.
So approval of minutes.
November 27th, 2024. Adopted as printed. Thank you for Mayor Dolan, second by Vice Chair Canning. All in favor? Carried. Presentations, we have none. Delegations or new business, we have none. Business arising from previous minutes. Let's look at the draft schedule that is brought forward in our minutes a little bit later. If you go to your screens, Maria, you probably can't pull it up that quick. But anyways, I've got the old one. Here's the new one. Not from 2020. So this is just draft, and it's a suggestion. And Mayor Dollin, I understand you're having difficulty with the 22nd of January, correct?
No, I'm good now. Oh,
okay,
wait,
great.
let me just check.
Oh. So there's a couple of suggestions I'd like to put forward for the board's consideration. Firstly, the July and August meeting, the July meeting we proposed to be at the summer break. Furthermore, I'm suggesting that the August 27th be a summer break meeting and a winter break in December, the month of. I have spoken to the chief, and if necessary, we would hold a special meeting. You know how busy everybody's schedules are during the summer and the Christmas period. And there's no issues for the service. As far as the Community Service Policing Act, we are required to be 4 times a year. We are meeting 9 times a year. So I think that's a necessity. And the other point I'd like to suggest is on the January 22nd, 2025 meeting, and rather than being in Bradford, that we utilize the in-power boardroom that we now have so that the board would have the opportunity to, well, I know Mayor Dollin, you've been there many times, but the board could have the opportunity to hold their meeting there. Comment? Mayor Dollin?
I just wanted to say, I was there yesterday and there's still lots of construction going on, so.
They tell me they're going to be done.
Okay.
So assuming it's done, does anybody have any issue with that?
You might have to wear hard hats, but I'm good with it.
All right, very good. Okay. So Maria will send out invites on that. And again, the summer meetings, we'll open it up for many of the board. And there are requirements of certain documents at certain times, but we're fine on those meetings. Chief went through that.
You'll take the old one out and read the new one with the new location, because I could have, but it
Yes.
in Melbourne.
Well, that's why I only
Don't
sent
wanna
out the January one
Yeah.
right now, because last month we approved the January date. But I'll send out locations and for all of this, and then this will be posted on the website come the beginning of January.
Okay.
But just to make sure my calendar changes.
Yes, I will make sure I send that out.
And at one point in February, we, working with my schedule, we moved it a week earlier. I'll be away for last week. So hopefully that works. And principally, I know that you both are involved with the county council at certain times, and I couldn't recall what that was.
Tuesday mornings.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right, so if everybody's fine with that, we'll just move ahead. Thank you, Maria. And I look forward to being at the in-power boardroom fully constructed. Mayor Dollin. All right, thank you. Monitoring reports. Deputy Sutton, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, through you to the board. The monitoring reports for November 2024.
Just hang tight just for a second.
There you go. Thank you. So for the month of November, we had 2,440 calls for service. And you can see from our online reporting number call for service, we had 50 calls for service through our online reporting platform, which is up significantly from when we started. We were sort of hovering around that 40 calls for service for the first several months, and now, as anticipated, those numbers are creeping upwards. We had 50 calls for service online, which prevented officers from having to drive to those locations and provide service that way. 47% of the calls for service were in Bradford, 52.7% of our calls for service were in Innisfil. And you can see on the left-hand side that Patrol Zone Municipality, Patrol Zone B, which is Alcona, had the most calls for service of 607, which is significantly higher than the next busiest zone, which is Patrol Zone B, which is the south side of Palm Street in Bradford, which had 446.
Deputy is just patrols, so we typically the more that.
Yeah, so we know certainly this year that Patrol Zone B has been reduced quite significantly, and we made sure that our supervisors are aware of that, so they can ensure that that's on the staff accordingly, to have enough staffing in that area whenever possible. 915 of those calls for service were proactive, 1,525 were active. So this is the year to date between November and November for the comparison between 2023 and 2024, and I'm just going to highlight a few of them. The second one here, the domestic incident partner violence, had 590 so far up to this point, compared to 457 at this time last year, so it's significantly higher domestics. As we go along, another one down the second row is our missing persons. So far, they're down slightly from last year, only at 98 compared to 147 this time of year for 2023. If we go over there to the stolen vehicles, as expected in 2024, our stolen vehicles are up significantly from 2023. That trend continues. The stolen vehicles, our provincial auto theft team, working in conjunction with Yokers and Police, been very busy. We've had some significant arrests, and it's never just an Innisfil, Bradford, or Barrie situation. You're getting York, Halton, Peel, Reach are all involved in these. It's organized crime, really.
Just the domestics, that's a large increase.
Yes.
Any particular reason why? I don't really want to phrase a question here. This is huge. That's what
It is. It's certainly a big increase. I think it's just, this is anecdotal. It reflects a lot of the stressors that are in society now, and families struggling to either finances or whatever it is. We're not really sure. Mental health issues also feed into that as well, of course, right? So, and they are a type of, there's a lot of work that goes into one domestic violence occurrence.
Yeah, that's huge. I would say, I know you probably don't have numbers, but is December also trending?
So when we compare back between October, the next slide between October and November, we're down by like 2 calls for service from October. So December is generally, it's a very stressful time for families, and there's a lot of people are going through a lot this time. So I anticipate our domestics for the month of December will be up, which is common.
I suppose it's economically driven too. Yeah, struggling to be, food for the kids and everything else. Very old.
Thank you. Again, anecdotally, I agree, but I also think that there's more emphasis now put on intimate partner violence, and people are more, probably would report it more where they wouldn't before.
Good point.
And we do raise the flag for intimate partner violence in late November, early December, and I just think that it's becoming okay to report this stuff, whereas before it was maybe happened, but was unreported.
So the bottom row there are landlord and tenants. Interestingly enough, they're down from last year, which I think is a good thing for us. But in saying that as well, we can get sort of like our theft of vehicles when it comes to a landlord and tenant dispute. We've had some very adversarial landlords and tenants. They can be calling us 6, 7, 8 times in a very short few weeks' time. It's not going very well, so that would certainly spike our numbers. But definitely, you can see that it's down from last year, which is a good news story. And our provincial offenses, tickets at the very end there, our charges compared to 2023, they're down just over 1,000 less provincial offenses tickets being issued. Our traffic unit has been short-staffed for the entire year. Officers have been busy on the road, so the staffing in the traffic unit and the number of fatal accidents that they've been involved in this year certainly will contribute to that number if they're just, A, we don't have the staffing there, and B, we've discussed many times how labor-intensive a fatal accident is to investigate. It takes weeks. The next slide. So compared to October to November, there's a difference of 5,115 calls for service. And then compared to October and November, our familial domestics, which will be brothers and sisters, mums and siblings, that's where our familial domestic occurrence is up, almost double from October. And then our intimate partner violence, as I just said, for November compared to October, is really around the same. Our assault calls are down significantly from last month, at 5 compared to 18. And as we go across, our stolen vehicles are down from November compared to October slightly. Our theft overs are down compared to October. And then the bottom line here, our repair offenses, we're at 19 compared to 29. That's just a blip. Certainly our repaired offenses are not down. That's just a blip for this month. And then our provincial offenses tickets that were written were pretty much on par with October. So it's kind of our officers are still out there writing tickets.
Sorry to move on, I just want to comment. So Bradford moving to an on-demand system. I'm hoping that when we move that system in, if we could actually watch our repairs, because I'm going to hope that the on-demand system is going to actually reduce that opportunity to get a car. It's a simple system, it works for it, and it's very inexpensive to install. So the on-demand, you'll be able to get on, take it from wherever you are to your direct house, and do the same thing in the morning, go back to get your car. It's on-demand buses.
Transit.
Yeah, on-demand. So we need to follow stats if you don't mind in April when it starts to see if we do reduce that. I think that should make a big difference. It really should.
Mayor Dolan, do you do that?
Well, our whole transit system is on demand.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
our Innisfil Transit is an on-demand transit system, so it always takes you to the river.
And you said it was a cost, isn't it?
Hey?
What was the cost?
Nothing, no increase to what our bus service we do now. It's a brand new system. It was just released yesterday. Big market in January. But it's an interesting system. I'm looking forward to that becoming a factor in reducing these types of incidents, hopefully in our community. So Phil's already on it, so hopefully it's going to be a wonderful system.
Very good.
Thank you. Just on a larger kind of look at how policy changes can affect you and your demands on your service. So the landlord dispute item we met with the Attorney General back in August, the small urban municipal group did about landlord-tenant issues, and they walked us through a whole bunch of things that they were doing to, and mostly just staffing up the tribunal and making sure that the tribunal was quicker than it was in the past. And I think, from our perspective, it'd be good to follow these stats and just let Minister Downey know, look, by you doing what you did, we're getting, less issues where police are called to landlord tenant. Because I think sometimes, we bug them and bug them and bug them we don't bug them, we advocate for change, and then we never say, hey, thanks, this, you made this change, and this is the effect that it had on the ground. Thank you very much. We never do that. We just go on to the next issue that we had, and they never hear the positive part of the change that they're making.
Thank you for
So your year-month stats comparison compared from November of 2023 to November of 2024. So November 20, obviously, of this year, we had 2,440 calls for service. November of 2023, we had 2,028. So we're more than 400 calls per service higher than month of November compared to last year. Big outline there is the assault calls were down significantly in November of this year compared to last year. Again, there's no rhyme or reason to that. It can just be a blip. The sexual assaults are up this year of 9 compared to last year. And to Mayor Dolin's point there about domestics and people who are willing to report it, I do believe that is certainly a contributing factor first that for sexual assaults and people, victims are coming forward and they are reporting these incidents to police.
Those are very labor-intensive investigations.
Yes. Mental health calls are up slightly from November of last year. Our stolen vehicles are up from last year. And then our theft overs are down significantly from last year. But again, that's just a month-to-month comparison. That's not that a yearly comparison. And then our provincial offenses charges are 384 compared to 318 from November of last year. So that is going up as well, our enforcement. Our motor vehicle collision dashboard, November of 2023, we had 146 compared to November of 2024, we had 119 motor vehicle collisions. Hit and runs were 5, property damage is 94, personal injury collisions are 19, and fatals 1 for November. So all in all, 60 of them were in Bradford and 59 were in Innisfil, so they're evenly spaced out. And then the motor vehicle collision intersections, so in Bradford, 189 Holland Street East, which is one of the plazas. We had 2 collisions there. 40 Melbourne will be Sobeys. And then you can see, go down a little bit, line 8, Sago 10, line 9 is Sago 10, line 9 in Young Street. That's all around that construction area there. So it's now open, which makes us all very happy. But that'll be the residual from that construction on Young Street. And if we go over to the Innisfil side of things, the 2050 Jans Boulevard, that's near the Sobeys in Innisfil, and 7485 Sago 5, that's the casino. So 2 collisions there. The fatal motor vehicle collisions dashboard, 50-50 between Innisfil and Bradford. But you can see that 6 of those for 2024 have, 6 have been in Innisfil, and 2 of the fatal motor vehicle collisions have been in Bradford. So certainly a very busy year. I think the chief explained at the last board meeting. The 2018 stats where we had 8 motor vehicle collisions, there was one of them, there was 3 in-line incidents. So these are all separate incidents of 8 fatal collisions, so a lot of work for our traffic here. We had 18 calls for service for traffic complaints in the month of November. And then we go to the calls for service unit comparison dashboard, and 2,440 for the November compared to 2028 and November of 2023. And we're certainly on trend to be over 30,000 calls for service, which will be a record for our community. So our post stats, so we had 56 crisis incidents for the month of November. 9 hours for our post team, 21.25 for our frontline patrol. The wait times at the hospital have stabilized, 2.1 average hours at RVH, 1.8 average hours for South-Lake. And you can see when we go to the analysis, 29 were diverted, which is more than 50% of those calls for service were diverted from the hospital. So that's a huge win for our communities and our police officer. 11 of those that did end up having to be transferred to hospital, 11 went to South-Lake, 7 went to RVH. And you can see the breakdown where people voluntarily went to the hospitals or very 3, 4 South-Lake and 2 went to Stevenson. So subject to any questions from the board, those are the one on the board to be looking at.
Let's see, Todd. Are there any questions, Todd, for you?
None for me, with that.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan.
Thank you. I wanted to point out that 4 of the fatal motor vehicle collisions in Innisfil this year have been on County Road 4. And our staff, the traffic engineers from Innisfil have met with the traffic engineers from the county to go over the stats and what the warrants show in those intersections. It's not lost on me that the county put in a new guardrail at 6th Line, and within a week of it being installed, it was bashed in. So it's a really bad intersection, but we've met with the county. We're just waiting to see what if there'll be any movement on any of those 4 intersections. But out of the 4 that we talked about that were on their road, 2 of them currently met the warrants for signalization. So we'll keep on them for that. And then on a lighter note, I just want to say that for proactive policing, I was manning a Salvation Army kettle in the LCBO on Saturday morning, and a young officer who I didn't catch his name, came in, said hello to the staff, wandered around the store, talked to people in the parking lot. It was the first day of the no tax thing, and I don't know whether that contributed to why he was there, but it was just such a positive vibe from the customers and the staff at the store, just to have a police officer wander around and say hello to everybody, and he was talking to some kids out in the parking lot, and it was that kind of policing that we get from South Simcoe that I love.
So he was on duty.
Oh yeah, he was on duty, and I just missed getting his name.
Great story.
Yeah, just on another note, I've noticed, and I think you're fully aware of it, we're getting a lot of smash and grabs going on. You see the news programs, but I'm worried about which stores, the storefronts are dirty. And I know we've had a lot in Bradford. And so I'm just curious as to how can we about that? That's happening late in the evening.
So our street crime unit, there has been a number down in Bradford. Our street crime unit, from my understanding, I don't want to share too much, there have certainly been suspects identified in those. It is a time of year thing as well. So I don't want to comment too much more, but once their investigation is kind of going over,
Yeah.
copycat.
Yeah, we have a rash of Bradford.
Yeah.
And then again, they come and go when there's no rhyme or reason for it, and people are motivated by greed or drug use or whatever their issues are. But yes, we're well aware of it. We are working on that. And the investigations take time. Yeah.
No further comments. Deputy, might as well move on to the financial reports.
Through you, Chair of the Board, so this is a summary of the financial activities, this is the operating report. So you can see between our grants and other revenue, we're $449,883 to the good with our grants and revenues. Our salaries and benefits were over budget by $51,257. That's a lot to do with our benefits, we over our benefits. Fuel is written good, just under $20,000. Our repairs and maintenance are over budget by $38,908. We did have a ration, but we had to keep our vehicles longer because we couldn't get them. And it tends to happen every few years what we go through is where cars are just breaking down. So that's the reason for that line item. The clothing is over budget by just under $50,000, and that was some of the CSPA requirements. We had to change the all the special constables. We ended up having to hire more officers because of retention. So that is why that is over. And other than that, we have a $313,013 to surplus in our operating budget.
As at the end of November.
As of the end of November, yes, thank you, Chair.
And projecting in $90,000 surplus at this point.
Okay.
Any questions?
Okay, and ask for a motion that capital.
Capital, so the capital, to the end of November, the line item is there for the additional office space, which again, as we've discussed, we're in the midst of renovations, thank you, Chair. So the radio equipment replacement, radio infrastructure, those projects are ongoing. Our furniture has been purchased, the 7 and 8 property lockers, that line item is closed. The 85th, the update, that is a 2025 project out of our escrow partners. The actual binary cameras, we have not paid that bill this year. And some of the other IT projects this year are ongoing. In the last the website redesign, we're going to put that project for next year. We're just too busy to get that project done. So we are working on getting that project done next year. NG 911 support, those projects there, again, those are ongoing. I did get an update from ESCO, which is previously applied in regards to the e-ticketing. We're going to spend most of that money on additional printers. According to our ESCO partners, the delay of having that fully functional and fully electronic is with the Bayberry Courthouse, the POA court. The issues on their end to do what they need to do for technology-wise for the tickets to be sent directly to the courthouse. So we've done everything we can do. The hold-up is on them. Once they do what they need to do, then we'll be able to fully live with that one.
Except the chief will be having a meeting with them in January now that they know that. It's a big efficiency for us.
Oh,
We don't have to drive tickets to Barrie anymore.
Yeah.
so did they give you an 8-minute time frame before the chief meets with them? But
From the very, like,
Yeah.
when I had a meeting with the ESCO partners last year, yesterday with all the deputies, and I was told that we're ready to go. Our ESCO is ready to go, it's just the courthouse that a little bit sluggish on that one. So now that I know that, I thought it was on our end, but now that I know that, then we can address that with them. The other projects, the Intoxilize, we spent that money, the speed measure devices, we spent most of that money, and all that was all purchased for 2024. So if there's any questions, that is the financial.
any questions from the board? Todd?
None here, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And ask for a motion that none of the reports to the board be received for information. Mayor Dolan, second by Mayor Luke. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Todd. All right, let's go to Chief Van Dyke's update.
Thank you, Chair. To the Chair of the Board. December is always a busy month for the service. This month is no different. So Monday, December 2nd, I met with the Bradford West Gwillimbury councillor about community safety issues at his request. And I'm always, if they want to meet with me, I'm always open and honest and transparent. So anyways, yes, made myself available. On December the 4th, the chair and I and the deputy presented our 2025 budget to the Innisfil Council. On December the 5th, I participated in a virtual meeting with small and mid chiefs to discuss recent funding announcement by the province for key police municipalities and how that does not create an equitable playing field. And the same night, attended the auxiliary appreciation dinner at Friday Harbor with Command, Chair Garrity and Mayor Duke, and all of Command were there. And that was a great event, and our volunteers do a lot for us, so it's just our way of saying thank you to them. Friday, December 6th was the toy drive for Toy Mountain at Alcona Canadian Tire. Thank you, Mayor Dolan, for coming and supporting us there. Monday, December 9th, I did a radio interview with Rock 95 Cool FM. They have a monthly podcast, and looks like I'll be doing a monthly community update every month for the service with Rock 95, Dan Blakely. And December was the first one. On Tuesday, December the 10th, we said goodbye to Trish Milligan. Trish is one of our dispatch supervisors, been with us for 20 years. And she has left to join the Belleville Police Service and will be moving to Belleville at some time in the near future. And I also did an exit interview with her that day. On December the 11th, as the board is aware, one of our officers passed away suddenly, and that's gone public, so there's nothing, no surprise to anybody here. On Friday, December 13th, we had our toy drive for 20 Mountain at the Bradford West Gwillimbury Canadian Tire and at the Walmart in Bradford. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it, but Inspector Jeffrey was there on behalf of the service, and I understand that yourself, Mayor, were in attendance, and other members of council, so thank you for your support. And on Friday, December the 13th, I attended the South Simcoe Police Association Christmas dinner. They are on good terms, so I received an invite, and Inspector Jeff went as well, so I'm always there to support them. Monday, December the 16th, as the board is aware, our officers were cleared of a fatal shooting in Innisfil by the Special Investigations Unit. The OPP have laid charges against the surviving suspect and are still investigating, so there will be no further comment from the service as this matter is before the court. And on Tuesday, the 16th, I met with the organizers of the Bradford West Gwillimbury Jalsa Solana. At their request, they wanted to talk about things that they could do to improve the event in 2025 should council decide to approve it. So we provided them with some feedback. And on the 17th, myself, the chair, and Deputy Sutton attended the Bradford West Gwillimbury council meeting and presented our 2025 budget to council. And just a few other things that have been on the go. The work on New Power Space continues, and I'm told is on track for December 6th, 2025. We're doing a phased-in move-in date. Obviously can't do everybody at once. That's way too much stress on everybody. And our IT department needs to be there to support people as we're moving, so we'll be doing that starting the 6th with about a month-long phase in. So working on the insurance file was, again, thank you to Town of Bradford for their work on that. But I want to acknowledge the deputy, and both the deputy and I spent a ton of time working on this file on our behalf, because obviously there's a lot of questions and things to work out. So thank you, deputy, for your work on that. And the board is also aware that the Inspector of Policing has sent policing insight statements to both the board and to the service, and then a separate report for us. So there's an awful lot of work that is going into that, and Tori Semple, our business strategist, is working on those insight statements and surveys to get all that done. We just submitted one the other day. There's another one due early January and another one due the end of January. So we're working on all that as well. So a bit of a make work project on behalf of the Inspector of Policing, but this is our new world. They are gathering stats as part of their analysis, and as we're well aware, they will be part of their seeing where services are at, taking it, basically a temperature check. So subject to any questions from the board, that is my report for December.
Comments, question, Mayor?
Sorry, Chief, did I hear you say that there is some work for the board to do? I'm a little behind on emails right now.
No,
so.
not for you yourself, but
Okay.
We push back on the IT at this point. We don't understand. And it was a nice pushback, but the reality is we still have to do it. So thank you, Maria, also for helping, and Tori. And
Tori as well.
I met with Tori and Maria once, and fill in the blanks that I could help her with, and it seems well in hand. We're going to meet once more before it's submitted in early January, so we're okay here.
All right,
But
so
thank
I'm
you.
not missing it.
no, it's nothing. It's nothing that board members need.
Okay.
It's just data.
Any other?
Just another, I want to apologize for missing the auxiliary dinner. I was in Toronto and it was snowy that night, and it took me 2.5 hours to get from Vaughan to Innisfil.
Not to make you feel bad, Mayor Dollin, but it was the best dinner ever.
I heard.
And truthfully, it was a really wonderful night. James could attest to that. they were appreciative, and the sergeants did a great job in their presentations, and yeah, I know it was appreciated. And Chief, I didn't hear in your report that there was one of our auxiliaries saved a child's life.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that, but that was, we did a media release on that. That was at the kind of Innisfil Santa Claus Parade in November. One of our brand new auxiliaries who, I think it was her second event that she'd ever been at, and was on a traffic point, and she was flagged down, or it was brought to her attention that a young child was choking. And she had, as part of our training for them, they get first aid and CPR training and learning how to clear airways. So she got right into action and was able to dislodge the item that was in the child. So it's a piece of candy, I think. And essentially saved the child's life. So it's really a good news story.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you everybody for your questions. So I'd ask that the motion for the verbal report from Chief Van Dyke be received by the board for information. Motion by Mayor Dollin, second by Member Singh. All in favor? And that's carried. Board direction to the Chief is primarily the budget discussions and the motion that came forward earlier. We had no correspondence or announcements today. Please note that the next meeting is on the 22nd of January, and it will be at the in-power boardroom, unless we hear otherwise, probably prior to the new year. Right?
Yeah, do another walk tomorrow morning and taking Maria, just looking at that.
Can I just ask one question out of curiosity? Number 15, board direction to the chief, is that something new under the CSBA?
That is correct.
It's not required, but it's good governance to put that in. And then perhaps, Maria, too, we could include IG updates in the regular meeting agenda as a regular agenda item. And there may not be updates, but I think it's a good thing to do. All right, so a motion that the Bradford West Gwillimbury, unless there's any further questions or comments, being done, a motion that the Bradford West Gwillimbury Innisfil Police Service Board adjourned at 11 o'clock a.m. And moved by Member Singh, seconded by Vice Chair Canning. All in favor? Everybody have a very Merry Christmas. Enjoy.
Take care.
See you, Todd.
See you, Todd.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to all.
Thank you.
2024, we achieved a lot. There was a lot of groundwork and foundation work done in terms of planning for the future. We're a very high growth community, so we're seeing increases in number of calls. We're seeing increases in requirements, expectations from our community, and we're making those plans. So a lot of it is work that is very fundamental to future planning. So things like a flooding and stormwater master plan was done. Our Municipal Services Corporation did a master servicing plan for our community. We're currently working on a new transit master plan and starting a new official plan. So all of that work isn't very sexy, I guess I want to say, but it's really important to plan that work carefully. So any work you are doing above and beyond that is things that are going to be planned properly, and you're going to spend the money in the places where it should be spent.
Simcoe County facing a lot of issues when it comes to housing, affordable housing, and also mental issue and drug crisis. So how the town of Innisfil dealing with those challenges?
So we work with all of our partners. So we have really good community partners with SHIFT, which is a local contact community services, Canadian Mental Health Association, of course, all of the folks at Simcoe County who do the health and social services for all 16 member municipalities, and South Simcoe Police. So we're very fortunate to be surrounded by a large number of organizations that all support each other, and we're certainly reliant on each other to provide what's best for our residents.
And in terms of when it comes to affordable housing?
It's done at the county level, and the county doesn't see, they see the county as one large county, not, as divided into smaller municipalities. So there's a large affordable housing project that's just opening in Bradford. There's one that's being worked on right now in Barrie. Our last one was the one that's at Innisfil Beach Road and 25th Side Road that was done several years ago now. But we work county-wide to make sure that we are investing in affordable housing and the wraparound services that go with that as well. So it's not just about housing, it's about, creating opportunities for people to thrive and to improve their lives, and if they aren't working, to get back into the workforce and make sure that they have all the supports that they need. So the wraparound supports are really important besides just the housing. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we switched several years ago to a 2-year budget. So it's really helpful for bigger projects, because quite often large projects you need 1 year of design and then 1 year of construction. So it gives staff that ability to know that that design work is actually going to be done the following year. It also takes months and months and months of behind the scenes work to develop a budget. So to be able to do that only once every 2 years versus once every year, we certainly tweak that budget, but we don't for the second year, but with all the hard work is done every other year instead of every year. So we're doing that work, and we aren't done for 2025, 2026. That's one of the challenges. One of the first challenges we'll face at our first meeting in the new year is to try to land on a budget. We've got a lot of pressures, particularly collective bargaining, so increases in wages, increases in everything. Just like in your own household budget, we've felt the pressures with cost of insurance, the cost of policing, the cost of fire service, the cost of inflation. All of that hits a municipality just as hard as it hits your own personal budget. So things like when you're constructing something, the cost of steel is more than it used to be. So all those things make an impact. So we're not there yet. We're still working hard on our budget. So community engagement has always been a top priority. We are fortunate enough to start a number of new initiatives in 2024 that we want to keep going. Our teen nights, which we've been working on. We've got lots of neighborhood nights where we connect with our community and make sure they understand the services that we provide and what we can do better, because we're not just about telling the residents, talking to them. We want them to talk to us, and we want them to tell us what it is that we need to do and what we need to do better. It's all about continuous improvement. It's not about saying we're the best and we've got it all right. We know we can continuously improve, and we're happy to hear from residents who are passionate about their community, who think we can do things better, and we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. So thank you to all the residents of Innisfil. We have an amazing community who volunteer countless hours. I'm always amazed when I see every week all of the things that the food bank is doing, that the Rotary is doing, the Lions are doing, all of the groups. We have a community for kids who are making sure kids don't go without. Everybody in our community who is looking out for each other and just making this a wonderful place to live. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and from all of council, we wish you the happiest of holidays and hope whatever it is that you enjoy the most, that you get lots of it during the holidays.
Welcome back, everyone. After a quick break, we'll get right back on track. And our first item up after break is the Director Bowman's Transportation Network, and it's on page 167 of the operating budget. Director Bowman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jumping right in, this service portfolio looks after over 770 lane kilometers of roads and 75 kilometers of sidewalk. Year to date, they've answered over 1,300 road inquiries, and I was hoping maybe one would drive by similarly to yesterday when the lights and sirens went by. Our plows are out on the road. They've been out since between 2 and 3 a.m. this morning and are doing an excellent job out there. So there are some factors affecting our service delivery costs. As our roads are aging, they do need more repair. Often we're out there working on potholes and shoulder maintenance. That's just a couple of examples. There's an impact of the excess soil regulation, again, impacting this budget. So that new regulation to manage excess materials, in this case from street sweeping, that add costs to our operating. So there is budget in 2026 in order for us to manage this. Our streetlights are now coming out of warranty, and so we are having to incur the cost of replacements. There are rising costs in contracted services. So for example, the Metrolinx contract for our crossing maintenance is up by 12%. We have fuel, insurance, materials and supplies, so sand and salt, which we buy in quantity, as well as cold patch, which is up 10%. Lots of these are increasing. Utilities, as well as wages and benefits. So we do have some unmaterialized revenues. So leaving our budget is cell tower revenues that have been transferred to in-services, and that's actually where they should be. With regard to automated speed enforcement and our red light camera program, this budget has both the revenues as well as the expenses associated with this, including the cost of the FTE, the Roads, Traffic and Transportation Project Manager, associated with those programs. We also have our new traffic calming installations. So we have the yearly cost of implementing these new traffic calming measures incorporated here too. So for council's consideration, there is a change request included in your budget for a roads operator. So this is due to the growth that we are feeling now with the assumption of 13 new subdivisions that will be taken on. This new operator in 2026 would take us from 13 plow routes to 14. And again, that's a 2026 recommendation. There were some budget items considered but not included in this budget. So again, we mentioned the street sweeping a requirement for excess soils. In 2025, we were actually able to manage that operationally. So we stepped away from that requirement for the 150,000. And there was budget added in 2026 in order to manage that regulation and the requirements therein. Dust control. Interestingly, the cost per liter of dust suppressant, that being oil, has increased by 134%. So dust suppression is usually applied twice a year. So by not adding this additional budget, we will be putting down one application per season. You also see, similarly with guide rail, similarly to how we will manage flood control, you see the removal of guide rail budget in both 25 and 26. Similarly to flooding though, if in an emergency we have guide rail damage, we would need to spend that and manage corporately. Traffic counts, this is good traffic science when you're applying changes to an area to do a pre and post evaluation of the effect of traffic in the area, both in counts and speed. So that budget will not be in place for that activity. And lastly, you see the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. Rather than adding those amounts to the budget in each of those years, what we're recommending is that the committee continue with the remaining budget, which is forecast to be around 25,000. And should that committee wish to have added funds towards the end of 2025, that could be a decision within the 2026 budget affirmation process. And moving into questions.
Questions for Nicole Bowman on this section. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. Quick question. How many kilometers on average does one of our operators travel with the vehicles over the year? And how much of an impact would that one operator being taken off the road have on the other 13 operators?
Might need a clarification. So right now we don't have we're speaking about the FTE request for the additional operator in 2026. So I think it was Mr. Melanishin who made the comment earlier that not every incremental piece that we take on will require another body to come into our group. But with taking on 13 new subdivisions assumptions coming online, we have tipped the point with needing a new operator to join that route. And that is to allow us to continue to meet our service level requirements. So this morning, for example, with the snowfall we received, we'll call that kind of an average snowfall. We had operators called in at 2, on the road by 3, and actually I think just about all of our mains had a first pass done before 7 a.m. So that's the kind of service level that we have committed to. And in order to continue to reach those types of targets with 13 new subdivisions coming online, we really do need to add that next route in order to continue that level. Does that help answer your question?
Thank you. To a degree. As a follow-up, our operators, are they limited to one vehicle specifically? Like they just drive snow plows specifically, or is it the dusters and then the sidewalk plows? Are they certified in various machinery? So they're not limited to one particular scope of the work.
Yeah, I'm proud to say that our operators are a multi-talented group, each of them with individual skill sets that we apply to different services throughout the year. So during the winter, they often have a dedicated plow route or sidewalk plow route, but in the buffer seasons and in the summer, they flip into other types of equipment and vehicles in order to deliver the various services that the road department completes.
Other questions? Councillor Richardson and Councillor Drodge.
Thank you. One of the big concerns and complaints that I get quite often is the pathways that they're not maintained in the winter, because our school boards are still using those as when they're calculating how far of a distance it is for kids to get to school and whether they take a bus or not. I just wonder if there's room for those paths to be maintained in the winter so that they can be utilized more.
Thank you, Councillor. This is Chris Trevisan, Operations Manager, to respond to that question. So I'm going to speak to current practice right now. Our sidewalk machines are able to maintain in and around those school areas where there is an open space or pathway. So I'll reference here on Court Park, there's a new trail that leads directly to that school from the sidewalk. So those assumption opportunities are definitely there for us to kind of incorporate those, certainly. Another one would be that Goodfellow kind of crossing that comes from Jack Crescent into Goodfellow School. So those opportunities we're currently already completing. But to speak to others in relation to how it kind of correlates with our park spaces, that ultimately just with staffing resources kind of being diverse to like those priority sidewalks, roadways, parking lots, fire halls, all those kind of maintenance practices currently, just simply don't have the capacity at this time with our current complement.
Can I just add then to Councillor Richardson's concern that if they are not maintained in the winter, can we not let the school bus consortium know that so that they don't use those paths as their calculation for walkers? Does that make sense? Councillor?
Yeah, well, yes, but yeah, I guess it does. But then just out of curiosity, with the new staff that if you want, would that staff be able to be allocated to work on those paths?
Thanks, Councillor. Just to clarify, though, there's an interesting overlap here with our roads team and parks and community spaces team. So it's actually on the park side of the business that most of those paths are looked after. It's okay that they overlap, and we have to think about them, and where they intersect, because our roads operators are looking after sidewalks. But so where we have multi-use trails, trails through the parks, and some of the ones that Chris just mentioned, those are being maintained by our parks team.
I mean, that is a level of service request that you can bring up later if that's something that you want to add to the budget. You can certainly make a motion and see if it carries. But we'll do that after, when we have our big conversation and bring forward motions about where we give direction to staff where we want to go. Other questions? I had a list. Sorry, Councillor Drodge and Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. We'll be bringing up additional guests as required for this section, but I draw your attention to page 198 to begin. So this portfolio covers two big areas. So one is our fleet management. This is the acquisition, disposal, and lifecycle management of over 170 fleet units. The other half of this is the fleet shop, which is delivering preventative and reactive repair. And this is a recoverable service in that we provide the service and then bill whoever owns the vehicle or whoever's department's aligned to that vehicle for that service. And in a year, we've delivered almost 2,000 service appointments. So there are some factors affecting service delivery costs here too. With respect to materials and supplies, we are seeing and expecting software fee increases and our wages and benefits. We also are just showing the difference here with an increase in internal and external fleet recoveries. So that's really what you're seeing in the difference between 2024 and 2025. There is a reduction, and that's because the budget is now more accurately showing that fleet provides a service and recovers, or rather bills a department like roads or bylaw for that service, and the expense will show up in those budgets. No key considerations in this one, but I'll draw your attention to a few of the capital projects. So first of all, I just want to go back to the fleet policy. The fleet policy is what drives the development of the replacement vehicle list you see on the first two lines. This policy has us taking various steps like an annual condition assessments and review of annual operating costs to evaluate whether or not a vehicle is ready for disposal. And because we do a 2-year budget in the year in which an asset is slated to go, based on those various factors from the policy, we do a final check to make sure that it is where it's expected to be in its life cycle and that it shouldn't be advanced or held back for additional years or switched with a different vehicle that's more critical to replace. So within those two programs, the replacement programs, I also wanted to highlight electric vehicles. Because within that replacement list, there are 5 light-duty SUVs and half-ton pickups, and per our same fleet policy, those have been budgeted and are slated to become electric vehicles. You also see in the growth category, there are 3 vehicles listed again, 2 for building, 1 for bylaw. Those are also budgeted and scheduled to be electric vehicles. So the next question that may pop to your mind is, do we have the infrastructure to charge them? And the answer is yes. So our existing infrastructure will be able to manage this group of vehicles, but we do have additional charging infrastructure that will come in over the next 10 years.
Thank you, Director Bowman. Councillor Saunders.
Thank you. Excuse me, I have 2 questions. When we're replacing vehicles, what do we do with the old vehicles, and where, if we sell them, where do they go? And the other question is, do we service our police and fire vehicles?
So the answer to the first question about the disposal, we do much of our asset disposal through a platform called GovDeals. We've been very successful on that platform. The second question about our police service, yes, we do service our police vehicles as well as our fire units.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've had this conversation with you numerous times, Ms. Bowman, and I apologize. I'm bringing it up again. I've done some research during our conversations due to the fact that $1.67 million per year for 9 vehicles and then 2.4 million for the following year for additional 10. I looked up the fleet management policy, and I'm seeing here that we're limiting it to 8 years for alternative fuel electric vehicles, 8 years for dump trucks and plow trucks, garbage trucks, 10 years. How do we go about extending it for an additional potential 2 years to get one more budget cycle out of each vehicle? I'm looking to do that because where my primary employment is, we have vehicles that are fully functional, that are capable of being maintained and managed, that run 16, 18 years. Now, mind you, some of them don't look as pretty as ours do, but at the same time, the amount of savings that go into purchasing vehicles, we're talking well over $1 million a year. So that's a bit of a concern for myself.
Director Bowman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the recommended service life is the starting place, and those numbers reflect the different uses and criticality of some of those vehicles. But also layered into that are the operational cost analysis. So there are points at which it is more expensive to be maintaining a vehicle, or it is highly mission critical to have vehicles that are in good working order. And so that's why some of those numbers are can be a little bit different. But we do that fulsome evaluation before anything lands into those replacement lists. So we do have vehicles in the fleet that have gone beyond their extended or their listed life cycle based on some of those evaluations by our fleet experts. If council were interested in changing those thresholds, that's going back to the fleet policy and making policy changes there.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there a way, if it comes back to council to address this policy to potentially extend the life cycles, could we get a breakdown of how many machines that we use that are more expensive to repair than replace, like an actual cost analysis with the existing machinery?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And yes, that effort was actually done in the update to the fleet policy that was brought forward fairly recently. I think it was in this past year to council. But certainly that's if council were to request that to come back again, that would be the exercise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the one question I did have was the sale of vehicles. Just a kind of an extended question. Where does that revenue go to when we sell vehicles? Where does it go? Does it go back to capital, or where does it go?
You, Councillor Waters, that actually goes back into the vehicle reserve fund.
Okay, thank you. And second is more of a comment, is that with going with the electric version, you reduce your operating costs both in fuel and in maintenance. So there should be some savings in the budget future years with that in mind as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions and comments for fleet? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Quick question. On page 225 of the budget report, it states that we're putting an additional 400,000 in from the ARS funding. Am I understanding that correctly, to bolster the reserves?
Treasurer Webb?
Yes. While I'm not certain where you're looking at in the budget document, I do know that we increased the transfer to reserve by 400,000 for 2025 and 2026. In the budget document as well, you will see that we intended to we wanted to increase it by $800,000 per year, but recognized that was a significant impact on the tax levy. And so that's one of those items, and you'll see Mike will talk to it later in the corporate services presentation, one of those items where we didn't increase the transfer to reserve as much as we wanted to. So it's not coming from OLG money or ARS money, it is coming from the tax levy.
Deputy Mayor?
All right, thank you for that. I'm going to just read what it says here, just so I want clarification for myself. On page 225, transfer to reserves and reserve funds. Increase transfer to OLG reserve due to the projected increased OLG revenue. Also increase the transfer to the fleet reserve for 400,000 to support future fleet replacement. You're saying that is coming, where's that $400,000 coming from? If you could clarify that, that'd be appreciated.
Yes, sorry, and I'm not stating my name. It's Audrey Webb, the treasurer at the town. The $400,000 is coming from the tax levy. So it's an expense, it's an amount that we're going to collect taxes for, and that money then gets transferred into the fleet reserve.
And we're going to have more conversation about this in Director Melanishin's section today. Any more questions for fleet? I have a couple. So for members of council that are maybe newer, the fact that we have our own facility to do maintenance and repair on our vehicles is pretty unique. I would say most municipalities do not have that. Most municipalities contract all that out. And I'm not seeing any nods, so tell me if I'm not right. Okay, I'm seeing nods. Good. So this was a project that council undertook, similar to the Rizzardo Health Center. You know, we wanted to be able to look after our own vehicles, save money. There was during the original business case, there was talk about an Empower truck that would need 2 people to take it to somewhere in Alliston to service it, and it would be gone for 3/4 of the day, plus you've got 2 people riding in it. So, I mean, that was part of the reasoning for building that fleet center. So I'm asking Director Bowman, or maybe it's the treasurer, but without me analyzing the numbers in the operations book, is it beneficial to us to have this facility? Are we in fact either cost neutral or saving money by doing this repair for our own vehicles and maintenance on our own vehicles versus not having that asset and having to contract out that work to a private enterprise? And this is probably unfair. I'm sorry, I should have given you a heads up a long time ago. I was going to ask this question, and it doesn't need to be answered today. I just think, you know, when we come up with an idea here and we move forward with an idea like Rizzardo, and we know that Rizzardo is revenue neutral, so that's wonderful. We're getting all these services and it's not costing the taxpayers money. It's also, we were also told about a business case for this facility, and I'm just, okay, it's been around for a few years now. How's it working out? Is it doing what it was intended to do? So if you want to give me a bit of an answer today, but please don't feel like you need to.
No, I'd actually love to give you an answer. So, you know, not having a formal business case in front of me, I'd just like to highlight a couple of those factors. One you've already kind of commented on was timeliness. So the fact that we have our fleet shop on premises, when something is, you know, needs a touch up or a full tune up, it is right there. So we do not lose staff time, which was a big part of that equation. We also can talk to quality. When our staff are the ones looking at a piece of machinery, they can make the judgment about what should get done. You can feel that you've got an honest quality evaluation of what is going on in a vehicle and the right level of investment to either repair or replace to keep a vehicle in the working order in which we need it. Now, as far as fleet rates go, we also evaluate those compared to the market rates every year. We are still a little bit lower than market rates, which also gives benefit because it is, so while the shop is offering these lower than market rates, it's our roads department, our bylaw department that pays that bill. So they are getting a lower than cost per hour, for example, than they would get going to an external shop. So those are probably 3, you know, quality, timeliness, the impact or preferable impact or lower impact on staff time, as well as kind of that dollar, you know, internal to external comparison. I think our fleet shop is definitely the win.
Thanks for that. You made me think about something I hadn't thought about before. So when I go in to get my oil changed, they want to sell me 18 different kind of filters, and I have no idea whether I need them or not. So I never thought about that piece of it, is that you're going to get an honest, only replacing what needs to be replaced, which is really important. I've been at the receiving end of phone calls when the route to a school isn't plowed after we got a meter snowfall because the snow plow's down. So I like to know that we have the ability to service that equipment, be it whether it's a snow plow or whatever it is, and that we're first in line because it's our equipment. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, things like sharpening the lawnmower blades and all that other equipment that would, you know, have to go out to someone else to do, all of that can be done in-house too. So that's really good. My final question then would be, I want all of our partners, and we can take this offline if you want, but I just want to make sure all of our partners are utilizing our facilities. When I mean partners, I mean our municipal services corporations, of which we are the sole owner, and, you know, perhaps police and Thank you.
Yeah, and I can certainly confirm that for you, Mayor Dolan, that we do service our municipal partners at Empower and Services, as well as our police partners. And you've mentioned previously too, the way we make available those bulk fuel and the price savings that we can offer through that avenue.
Final question. Do we have the ability to, do we have someone on staff that's familiar with the new technology for EVs that we're going to be able to do the maintenance on them?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. We have been sending our technicians out to receive training for EVs. So, but I'm quite proud of Katie Lockhart, who's sitting here, who's become quite the expert on the business side of EVs and has been doing a wonderful job at the analysis and helping us make good decisions about our adoption of EVs.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Lockhart. I mean, we miss you at customer service, but you've really seemed to have found your niche in fleet. So that's great. Any other questions or comments for fleet? Seeing none, I think now we have the oh, sorry, Councillor Waters.
I just want to throw my support behind our own fleet services. I've heard horrendous stories. I have a relative who works for Canada Post, and the horror stories that come out of there in terms of contracts and what it costs them to repair vehicles. So I think keeping it in-house, but I think also too, it's also nice to be able to get confirmation from your question in terms of, is it working out the way, to get feedback after a few years of something would always be nice to council that we made the right decision, and also say, wasn't it an effective move? A good example is the city of Toronto, where half the city is serviced by private garbage collectors and the other half. So it keeps the private garbage collectors in line because, the public side is actually providing a cheaper service. And that was something that the sale of the private side, they never heard of before. So the public side was actually doing a better service. So I just want to throw my support to the fact that we do our own in-house, because I think it is much more effective, much more efficient, saves us money, and we also get a much better quality job. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm seeing no more hands, so we will move to the recommendation for all of Director Bowman's sections, and that is moved by Councillor Zanella and seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. It's now time for a lunch break, so we will break now and return in 30 minutes, so at 11:25. I'm sorry, 12:25. Why don't we say 12:30 and give ourselves a luxurious lunch break? Thank you. Go ahead, Director Malinishin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just starting off with the sort of the corporate services and innovation portfolio. These are categorized by service bundles, so there's a bit of disconnect or connection, dot the lines between the actual departments and the service bundle. So I'm going to walk you through that today. The first service bundle that we're looking at is the citizen requests and services. This is fundamentally the clerks, the salaries of the clerks, this clerks department, and this does all the provisions required under the Municipal Act, including running of the council meetings, committee support, our civil marriage program, and freedom of information. Thank you, Treasurer Webb. So and administration of the freedom of information requests that do come through, and we have a legal responsibility to respond in a timely manner. There has been a notable increase in the expected marriage licenses that we are undertaking, the team is taking. I'll just put it in perspective. This year alone, there was over 170 marriages that were performed by the staff, as well as almost 500 wedding marriage licenses this year. This service bundle also includes the cost for elections that happen every 4 years. So, yeah. So from an operating budget perspective, as I said, this is pretty much just the clerk's staff wages. We are anticipating some, revenue increases from the marriage program, but in general, it's somewhat offset by different economic factors, internal transfers, increases in compensation that are starting offsetting that. So there's a modest increase in this budget, operating budget for 2025 and 2026. But we are having no asks for consideration of council in this section.
Thank you. And we're on page 115 for those following in book. Questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Just for some clarification, when I was looking at the numbers, I thought this was mostly to do with the marriage ceremonies in terms of what it was costing for what the revenues were and what the expenditures were. Is it possible to separate out what the wedding services are costing us? Because at first I was looking at this saying, okay, we're bringing in $79,000 and we're spending $600,000. Is that really a good use of resources in terms of expenditures? Is it something that we need to be doing? Is that a service we need to be providing? So I just wanted to look at, what the clarification in terms of what are the expenditures associated with the weddings, and is it a service we should be providing, or is it something we don't need to do?
Yeah, to Councillor Waters, I think we haven't done quite the analysis of the business case. This is a function that we do perform for the citizens. We can look at the analysis. It's really just a bit of staff time, because the staff time to come in and actually perform the marriages. We do set the wedding rates to be cost effective and try and break even from there, but we can do that analysis. As far as how much staff time is actually costing, because the added expenses are just town hall space, which is minor. So, Madam Clerk, do you have any other comments on the wedding piece of it?
Thank you. The revenues are actually there's a quite high offset to the cost of performing the services. Our typical costs are just associated with officiants, so that can be broken out for you. And we've had a substantial increase in our license revenue as we've gone online with a portal that the province has afforded us, which has almost tripled our license revenue.
Thank you for the clarification. When I first looked at the numbers, I thought all that expenditures were all associated with weddings, and I just thought, I'm not a business person, but it didn't look good to me. So thank you for the clarification.
Other questions or comments on this section? Seeing none, we'll go to council and committees. Mr. Melanishin. Event? Corporate management.
Sorry, the penultimate event, Mayor Dolan. We're going to do corporate management, then the ultimate, corporate finance.
Yeah, and then I don't want to give hopes, like we still have to come back for deliberation. I don't want you to think this is the end of the day. This is just the end of the presentations, and then the real work begins. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm just going to talk briefly on the corporate management shared service bundle. This is predominantly the CAO's office and the executive business partner team, as well as the enterprise strategy and business planning team. Overall, the CAO's office provides, support to council, support to the residents, support to the community strategic plan development and delivery of that. That's stemming and support for council in council meetings and special council meetings from the executive business partner team. The enterprise strategy and business planning team also supports the strategic plan implementation, and this team also helps in improving the efficiency of the organization by working on projects focused on workflow improvement, efficiency improvement, small but mighty team that really is a catalyst for a lot of change and innovative ideas that go on in the organization. As well, the enterprise strategy and business planning team deals with asset management. And under OREG 58817 by the province, we have significant reporting requirements. Another one coming up in July 1st of 2025 for a long-term financial plan, how we're going to achieve the asset replacement renewal of our $500 million worth of assets. And Ken and his team manage that asset management portfolio. So a lot of good work going on across the CIO's office as well as the business planning team. From an operating perspective, just again, it's general increases due to wages and benefits. These are predominantly staffing positions, so they are impacted by wage and benefit increases and compensation adjustments. The one increase that you are seeing there, there's a little bit of an increase in there, is the recommended change request of what we're calling a business performance specialist and with a grant focus. So currently we have a grant writer, and this grant writer has more than proven the value of the position. I would say in the last year that role has brought in over $36 million of grants within the last year, has more than paid for the position itself. So typically this position has been paid out of the building reserve fund. We thought it was most appropriate because most of the grants will impact capital projects. So we have had it sort of in the capital reserve fund paying for that position. The team of business performance planning, business performance, there are so many projects that we need to work on to improve and make our operations much more efficient. And that team is stretched and pressed. So we need more support in there to really take and do some creative, innovative projects that will really help the organization become more nimble and agile. So the request here is to shift, to bring on a business performance specialist that will also do grant writing, a combined role. The grant portfolio ebbs and ways, so it goes up and down depending on when the province puts out federal funding, when different organizations put out possible grant funding, and during those lull periods, we would like to be able to use that person as a business performance, helping with different projects and improvement projects going on across the organization. So we are essentially asking, this is I'm not going to call it an unbudgeted position, but we want to create it as a formal full-time equivalent position, for a full-time position, which will be partially funded from the capital reserve still. We're recommending only half of the position be brought into the tax levy and half of it will be still on the capital reserve portion, just to help reduce the tax levy. But we think it's a really important position to support the projects going on around the organization, as well as, really making sure we're focused on capturing all that money that's on the table. As Mayor Dollin always says, let's not leave money on the table when we don't have to. So that is the goal of that position. Sorry, just one last piece. We are having a small budget ask from an enterprise risk management perspective. We are looking to, expand risk management just beyond emergency management insurance, but there's much more risk associated with asset management, IT risk management. So we are trying to create a risk management portfolio and committee, and this will go a long way in supporting that endeavor. And any questions?
Questions, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if my understanding is correct, out of the $69,569 that's going to be allocated to this role, $34,784.50 of every year is going to be taken from two different sources, like one half from one, or is the 69,000 the one half that we're asking for?
Yeah, for clarification, Deputy Mayor, that is the half proportion. This is the impact to the tax levy. So this is the half of the piece that you're seeing here.
So we're looking at a position taking on a full-time employee for approximately $140,000. Is that my understanding?
Yes, that is correct. That would be salary and benefits included in there as well.
Other questions? I'd like to ask about the risk management, enterprise risk management piece proposal. So with insurance, the insurance pool looking like it's going to happen June 1, I'm wondering if there's going to be requirement through that pool to do some sort of risk management. I'm just wondering if the timing is off on this because of the insurance pool.
Great question, Mayor Dolan. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Schuyler just to talk about it won't impact the insurance pool, correct? This is separate above and beyond insurance.
Correct. This through you, Your Worship, Ken Schuyler, Head of Enterprise Strategy and Business Planning. This is to augment what we already do with insurance and take a more holistic view of the town, to build a risk register that'll encompass all risks that the town experiences and develop mitigation strategies and or strategies to avoid the risk, or also on the positive side, identify opportunities and how to take advantage of them. So I would say initially it really won't affect what's happening with the insurance pool. It's just going to be looking at the risks that go beyond insurance as a mitigation.
Okay, so if I'm understanding it correctly, this would be risks that we don't go to our insurance company to cover?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Other questions or comments on this section? Okay. Director Melanishin, is that the end of your section?
Sorry, Your Worship, we will go back to the corporate finance piece. Unless you wish to skip over that piece, Your Worship. So I'm just going to go back on the slide deck to that, unless the clerks can get me there faster. Corporate finance.
So page 175 in your budget book, and this is going to bring it all home, isn't it, Mr. Melanishin?
Yes, Your Worship. So, Your Worships and Council, corporate finance. So this service bundle essentially deals with the entire sort of revenue stream that comes into the organization, and it gives us our ability to provide the services that we do. We have multiple different revenue streams that this area manages through the Treasurer's Department and the finance team. Predominantly, taxes related revenue, supplementary taxes. We have penalty and interest that come through for people that don't pay on time, as well as bank and investment income. This investment income is encompassing what we do with the generalized legal list, which we're allowed to, and as well as our one joint investment board investments that we have with the town through AMO and One Investment. We do receive dividends, particularly from Empower. This year, we have actually increased that dividend estimate from $200,000 that last year to $500,000 this year. That is currently a direct reduction to the tax levy, so that goes a long way in helping manage the tax levy. In this area, we manage wage contingencies that we were talking about, the salary gapping dollars earlier. That is managed through this service bundle. And the other piece, the last piece, is the capital levy, the 1% tax levy that we put on the 1% levy that we put on the tax rate goes into this building reserve fund to increase that. This department also manages, all the reserves. So the OLG money, which we call the alternate revenue source reserve, as well as the property tax rate stabilization reserves. So these in general, it just accumulates all the corporate revenues in this service bundle. So this budget, there are some, lofty, significant streams of revenue money coming in and out of this. We will collect the money here, and yet we will transfer it out. So when you see a transfer, it's akin to an expense of the department. Although we're collecting it in the department, we transfer it out, becomes an expense of that department, but it's building up a reserve on the other side. Significant changes, bank interest has been up for 2025. We are anticipating that to drop for 2026. Interest rates have been coming down, as you've seen throughout the year. We have a penalty and interest on taxes receivable. We have adjusted that to our actuals, and then we have an annual growth increase that we build into the budget. As the community grows, our accounts receivable we anticipate will grow, and we're generating more revenue. As I said earlier, the in-power dividend has increased up by $300,000 from $200,000 to $500,000. In our capital levy, we are increasing our transfers to reserves by $2 million, just over $2 million for each year. And in this budget, you will note the utilization of the property tax rate stabilization reserve. Staff recommended in the budget book to transfer $800,000 from the property tax stabilization reserve into to help reduce the tax levy, and we can open that for further discussion as well. The staff are suggesting to redo a slight repayment of that, about $500,000 back into 2026. There are some budget risks. As I said, this department accumulates the salary gapping dollars, wage contingency, we call it. If we don't have those, we asked, as I said, we budgeted for about $350,000. If that doesn't transpire, we have a little bit of risk, but we based it on our best historical knowledge of that to develop that. So there are different transfers to the reserves. As we talked about the transfer to the fleet reserve, Treasurer Webb mentioned we're suggesting transferring for only $400,000 this year to the fleet reserve. We originally wanted to do $800,000 to help build for future procurements of our fleet, but we made a decision as a staff not to increase that by only $400,000, not $800,000 to help with the tax levy mitigation. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is the capital levy. This is the source. This is the department that collects the tax of the capital levy. This is where we see it. Then we transfer it off to the capital levy reserve. I do want to highlight something here. The decision here is to the real ask is to continue with that 1% annual increase. And by example, this shows our capital levy each year that we're collecting. If we use, on the bottom line there, you'll see 2023 annual amortization. So that's a proxy of what needs to be replaced. We use amortization or depreciation as a proxy of what needs to be replaced or repaired. So our 1% levy hasn't quite caught up to the full rate of depreciation and amortization. So we're only collecting for 2023 as the example, we're only collecting $10 million, yet we're predicting that we're going to need to replace $15 million. Of repair and replacement. So it's really important from a staffing perspective that we continue this 1% levy. I mean, ideally staff would like to see this increase a little bit, but we are being realistic as well. And that goes into building our capital reserves. And those capital reserves, along with our OLG money, our alternate revenue source money, is used to work on projects where there's not DC eligible projects. So it's the piece that benefit to existing, the non-growth portion of any infrastructure project that we have. So to me, the building reserve fund and the OLG money are used essentially for the same reason, for the same tool, is to continue and build those pieces, pay for those pieces of infrastructure that growth or development charges do not cover. The OLG, the money, the policy does stipulate two predominant, if I highlight, just summarize that policy, it's for those one-time strategic initiatives and for the specific purpose of the benefit to existing or non-growth portion of capital projects. And I just like to provide a little bit of a snapshot here, sort of where we talk about, our costs and the pressures that we have on OLG and the capital reserves that we're trying to build. If we use amortization as a proxy of what we need to do from a repair and maintenance replacement perspective, we're looking at about almost $200 million of expenses. Right now, our capital reserves, this reserve has only been in place for the capital levy, since 2010. So we are starting to build those reserves. So we've had a 1% reserve percentage in place on the levy since 2010, except for a couple blips through COVID, we stopped it. So we've been able to accumulate $44 million. Our projected gap is $150 million. that we need to still find and figure out from a long-term planning perspective how we are going to manage our asset management plans and our long-term financial plans. The other key thing to point out here is these are based on the financial statements. Financial statements are developed around original costs. These are the original costs that we took to put this infrastructure in. Current replacement values that we've seen through different infrastructure initiatives have tripled in some cases. So this is just a real lowball proxy of trying to show what our infrastructure gap, and I'm trying to demonstrate here is the necessity of keeping that capital levy in place and the necessity of the, watching how we really spend the ARS, the OLG money, because we're predicting that within the next 2 years, we're almost exhausted the OLG reserve of $30 million that we have right now. And we can get into that a little bit more. I just want to highlight that a little bit, this, this infrastructure gap that we do have going forward. So for key considerations, as I mentioned, these are a couple of things that we did not include in the budget. We did transfer $400,000 into the fleet reserve to build our reserve for the future. We're holding back $400,000, I'll say. And the other consideration is we did have a formal request from the Innisfil Community Foundation for an additional $50,000. Staff are not recommending that transfer at this point in time. Through past agreements and through past council staff reports, we fund Innisfil Community Foundation $200,000 a year already. We have to look at that for 2025 because that agreement will expire in 2025. So just one thing to consider. I know there have been significant conversations with the Innisfil Community Foundation, but we did want to raise that for you, that we are not recommending at this point in time due to the other pressures that we do have within the organization. So we have heard, over the last, couple days, the different strategies. How can we reduce the tax levy? What are the tools in our pocket? What are some initiatives that we can take? We've heard things, the use of reserves, and here's the perfect example of the tax rate stabilization reserve. We've heard, different things about our investment returns. Are we investing properly? What does one joint investment board do for us? What does that mean? And the other conversation we've heard is like, what do we do with our surpluses when we have surpluses from prior years? How do we handle that, and what do we do with that? And that's where I sort of want to leap into that conversation, but I do want to start off with the utilization of the tax rate stabilization reserve. And in this case, we're predicting the budget is based on the tax rate use of about $800,000 for tax rate stabilization reserve use of $800,000 for 2025 and a repayment back into 2026. So there are reserve balances, our ending balances. We have to have minimum thresholds in there. Under policy and best practice, we have a 5% minimum. That is a 5% of our operating budget. So that number could fluctuate depending if budget goes up or down. But that is sort of where we want to, our target is that we think that the tax rate stabilization reserve should reside at. So you see there, we're at 5% minimum for 2025. It says about $3.8 million. We're predicting an ending balance of $4.6 million. Based on the $800,000 that staff are recommending to withdraw from that reserve right now. The key consideration here when we get into the use of reserves is that these are not, we can only use the reserves so much. We can't keep drawing down on the reserves or we exhaust them. We may get below our 5% minimum threshold, which is fine, and that's council's choice, but we need to be aware that that is set up for, contingency for emergency situations, to keep the business operating. We need some, reserves set up so we can continue the operations of the business should something happen. It is just best practice. So my caution to council is as we get into the reserve discussion, all you're doing is essentially artificially lowering the tax levy. Those expenses have not gone away. Those expenses will recur the next year and have nothing to offset it unless council considers using the tax rate stabilization reserve again to reduce it. So those expenses are still up here, but the tax rate stabilization reserve usage drops it down here to make the tax levy percentage a little bit lower, but the expense hasn't gone away yet. So it will come back in future years to be the truth will have to be reconciled at that point in time, right? It doesn't just go away, the expenses. It's a temporary aberration that brings that tax levy down only for that period, for that short period of time. So we really need to be cognizant of that as we get into conversations about the tax rate stabilization reserve. Similar with the, and I sort of touched on it as well, the OLG money, the ARS money, we heard, can we use it for operating? Very similar vein. We need to be careful with that one. As I said, we've done, for our one joint investment board, we do a lot of cash flow forecasting for how much money we want to invest in the joint investment board. And our numbers are showing that we potentially will exhaust our $30 million reserve in ARS by the end of 2028. We're going to have an $11 million deficit. So that's not with taking into account any debt financing at this point in time. I just want council to be aware that we have thought through how we, what we're recommending and drawdowns of reserves and to be very cautious with it. So, and just one other comment on the surplus. We have a surplus. We're predicting a surplus of about $846,000 from 2024. You saw that in the Q3 staff report that came to council last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. So we are predicting an $846,000 surplus. So what happens with that surplus is we will move that surplus into the tax rate stabilization reserve to increase it. And I think for this exercise, Audrey, correct me if that slide actually includes the $846,000 in the tax rates in the beginning balance of 2025. That opening balance of 5149 includes $846,000 of the tax of the surplus. Correct.
Actually, I see a mistake on that slide because of the bottom numbers, right? Ending balance, but the opening balances.
Okay, the carry forward balances aren't quite there, but the bottom numbers are right for 2025. Don't look at the 2024 numbers. We're just looking at the slide. It was the last minute change on that one. So we have moved. So what happens was that operating surplus gets moved into the tax rate stabilization reserve, and should council choose to draw down more of it, we will take it from the tax rate stabilization reserve and move it down into the operating levy to reduce the operating levy. So on that note, I think there's three conversations: the use of surplus, I think use of reserves, and a better understanding of our investment returns and how we utilize those. And I think those are the kind of the conversations that we've heard over the last few weeks and few days. So I will open up to council if they have any questions.
Thank you. We'll take a few questions and we're going to do a bit of a break and then come back and get into it some more if I'm in the right spot. Yes, I am. Okay. So we'll ask some questions, we'll have a break, and then we'll come back to provide direction and further discussion. Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to bring some big numbers out here. So I know we've had this conversation before. I just want to float an idea to see how feasible it may be in regards to the ARS. We're looking at the numbers here. The opening of 2024, it says $30,076,187. The closing would be $27,742,830, resulting in a loss of $2.33 million over the year from the ARS. They're predicting at the closing of 2025 an addition to it of $430,660, and then 2026 a massive boon of $2.76 million, which is 6.5 times the amount predicted for 2025. Now, my thoughts are this, and I'm wondering if we can do this. If we keep the budget at the level that it's at a closing of 2024 at $27 million, that gives us the ability to use $3.19 million to forward into programs or something that we can use to maintain or even lower it. Going with the math that Mr. Militian has put out, every $900,000 is approximately 1%. We're looking at a 3.5% reduction while maintaining the existing ARS funding at the level it is at $27.7 million. Is there a way we can, realistically, with $27 million in the ARS funds without touching it, but we're taking the funding that we're proposing to be getting and passing on the savings to the residents, is there not a way we can utilize that appropriately?
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, yeah, I see where I understand what you're saying. I understand. So you're basically saying, can we draw down more reserves from the OLG money? Can we draw down those reserves? Two cautionary tales. Number one, those expenses aren't going to go away for future years. You'll be paying for it in the future years, right? Number two, the OLG money is essentially an indirect reduction to the tax levy. If we use it here, if we draw it down now, that money was going forward to fund non-growth portions of capital projects. We need to find a source to replace that. So the source to replace that would be the capital building reserves, the capital reserves, which are built up from the 1% tax levy. So by reducing that, what we're trying not to do here is take that 1% tax levy on the capital levy and increase that to 1.25 to have to maybe offset that 3 million and change that you're proposing to pull out of ARS, because building reserves and the ARS are essentially used for the same thing. The non-growth portion, benefit to existing portion of capital projects that are not funded by DCs. We need to pay for that portion somewhere. We're blessed with the OLG money that we use that for. We've done significant projects and paid for pieces of that. Otherwise, we would have had to hit the tax levy to pay for it or forego those projects. So in the absence, if we reduce the ARS money to use it to subsidize operating, we're going to have to increase the operating or capital levy to bring it back to a state that we can use it to fund those future capital project portions of capital projects the town would be responsible for and not the developers are responsible for. So it's this big circle that we get ourselves into.
Can I just ask, Mr. Milanishin, you talked about by a certain year we'd be 11 million in the hole in the OLG money, and can you point me to that page?
Mayor Dollin, I'll answer that question or attempt to answer that question. So I'm not sure that we speak to that exactly in the budget document. By 2028, sorry, I'm going to back up for a minute. When we speak about the 2024 balance of $27 million, that's our cash balance. So we're always forecasting out the cash that we have at any point in time. But because we have multi-year capital projects, not all those funds are being spent in 2024. So for example, at the end of 2024, we have $27 million in cash. We have committed to $9.4 million, though, of money from ARS that we haven't spent yet. Okay? When we get to 2028, so this is, I think, maybe the $11 million you're referring to. By the time we get to 2028, if we don't debt finance, then the balance would be a deficit of $11 million in that cash. But we also have commitments of $65 million. Now, this is just forecasting it out. Like, this is our we're taking the capital program and forecasting things out. These numbers, what they don't include is debt financing. So we've got, as you know, we have used very little of our debt capacity. So going forward, and we know we have a large capital program, specifically growth, which is what ARS money is used for. So, there's opportunities for us to advance capital projects and debt finance them. So, when I factor that in, that number potentially will change. So that's just something to keep in mind. And so, I think in terms of what the director was saying, there is opportunities for council to use ARS money, and we're suggesting that, if there's one-time opportunities to do that, there are consequences of doing that, of course, when you get to the 2027 budget. Because then you're just maybe just punting that down the road in terms of that tax rate increase. But the other thing that we'll keep in mind is, because if we are using ARS money, then as town staff, potentially we need to, and depending how much of that we use, it's about us looking at our capital program again and saying, okay, guess what? Maybe we're short so many $1 million. These capital projects potentially can't go forward, or we need to maybe we need more debt financing. But if you look in the capital overview, and all these numbers in this capital forecast needs to be refined, but we've got large capital commitments coming up in the next 10 years or so. So those are a number of factors for you to consider as you consider utilizing money from ARS. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you for the explanation. And I hear your words. I understand what you're saying. Part of what I'm hearing is that part of the $3.19 million is already spoken for capital projects moving forward. Am I correct in that assumption?
Sorry, what was the number? The 3 point?
Over the next, between the closing balance of 2024 and the closing balance of 2026, we're looking at $3.19 million. So when I mentioned this, Mr. Militian stated that some of these funds were already spoken for the 10% for the capital projects that would be taken off the levy otherwise. Now, do we have a number roughly how much that would be? Is there something we can do with the funds that are not already spoken for as a temporary? I understand what's being said here, that the money's already been allocated. They've been set aside, but there's going to be a residual amount that we should be able to utilize that would not affect that directly.
So in answer to that, Deputy Mayor, I would say that our 10-year forecast isn't, refined. I mean, there's lots of estimates that, in terms of capital projects that, as we get closer to those years that, we'll refine those. What are DC revenues going to look like going forward? What is our OLG revenue going to look like going forward? Because that's potentially going to change as well. So there's lots of estimates in there. When we look out 10 years, yes, we're fully utilizing our ARS money. But I don't think that the answer to that means that you can't necessarily use ARS money today for one-time items. You just need to be cognizant and understand that, potentially you're using money for operating now, that, yes, we would, if it didn't get used for operating, we would use it for capital purposes. So it would just be about us, taking another look at our capital program and making decisions at that time based on the funds available.
So if I can try to help here. So we made a cognizant decision right from the beginning of getting the money from OLG, which we call ARS, alternate revenue sources. We made, because we don't know, like the Minister of Finance could tomorrow say, guess what? All the money from the casinos is now going to whatever, fund whatever, affordable housing, and we get nothing. So as of tomorrow, that can happen. So we've always tried to think of it as kind of that buying stuff with it, the $20 you got from your grandmother and your aunt in an envelope at Christmas. That was just, you'd buy one-time thing for that. You wouldn't pay your rent with that. You wouldn't buy groceries with that because your aunt might not give you that money next year and you still got to pay your rent and buy your groceries. So if you're using the OLG funds on operating, that's a problem. But to use it for the one-time expenses is what we've always tried to do. I have Councillor Ices and Councillor Drodge, but I just wondered if we want to, and CAO Gershow first, and then maybe we'll just take a 10-minute break and come back.
Thank you, Mayor Dollin. Maybe just to try to simplify this further and come back to the Deputy Mayor's question. Can the ARS funds be used? The answer is yes. That's the short answer. I think what the team here has been trying to explain is that we know we have a lot of capital projects coming down the pipe. We know development charges will help us pay for some, but not all, of the cost of those projects. Our policy says we're supposed to use this OLG money to pay for the rest of those projects when we get to them. So what the finance team tries to do is forecast that out. We know that in coming years, I mean, to the mayor's point, we can't be sure, but we can guess that in future years, there'll be OLG revenue. And then we look at our capital program as we do. Remember, when we do our development charge background study, we do a 10-year plan of projects that we think we're going to implement. So let's say 5 years from now, we think we're going to build a bridge and that costs $10 million. And we're saying we think development charges might give us $5 million of that. The other $5 million we need, we're going to earmark from our ARS reserve. So that's what we mean when we say it's spoken for, right? It's been earmarked to actual projects that we think we're going to need to build. Now, could you say, that's 5 years away, I need that money now for something else? Yes, you can. The risk, if you keep doing that, is that 5 years from now, when it comes time to build the bridge, you still need that $5 million. You either got to get it from somewhere else or not build the bridge. So that's basically the risk. So, I mean, the short answer is yes, you can consider the use of this reserve, but there's risks to doing so in our policy.
That was the update from Town of Innisfil. Thank you for watching.